Hey there, this is Dr. Pam Perry, and we are here for another Amazon Live, and it's coming up right after this.
Hey yo, kick back, relax, let's dive in the page. PamPerryPR got the books for your brain. From fiction and non-fiction, all genres insane. We coming through showing love to the lit game. Greatest stories ever told, gotta find your pick. Imagination running wild, ain't nothing slick. Get lost in the pages, let your mind drift. PamPerryPR got your brain in the bookshelf vibe. Turning the pages with pride. PamPerryPR got the words by your side. Bookshelf vibe, turning pages with pride. PamPerryPR got the words by your side. From the classics to new, we got the books for you. Get your mind right, let the knowledge accrue. Bookshelf vibe, expand, memorize, and fly. PamPerryPR keeping readers satisfied. Books up high, knowledge we can't deny. Get your reading on, the book one fly. Click cover image.
All right, get your reading on. So today we're going to be talking with the author of these two books, but we're mostly going to be talking about this one here. And this one is called Raising an Autistic Young Adult by Esther Dillard. And I'm going to bring her up right now to the stage. There we go. Hey, how are you? So this is a Pam Perry's pick because this book right here, not only is it a book, but she turned it into an audio series as well. And the audio series won a Gracie Award. And so that is one of the main things. She's a journalist, she's an author, she's a speaker. She's actually just taken the stage not too long ago at the Howard Theater. Excellent job. If you want to see your speaker reel, I'll probably put that in the notes so that they can see your speaker reel and really tell a story about how this book came about. So kind of give us a little bit. I'm going to bring this up a little bit closer so they can actually see. There we go. There it
Well,
is. Putting
a
together
little bit about how I got it started with this is that I was concerned initially about some reports that were in the news, and it was about how police had encounters with individuals, young teenagers who were on the autism spectrum. And one of them was Ryan Gaynor, who back in March in California was shot by police when their family had made an emergency call. Because he was having a mental health episode. And he was shot. Police said that he came after them with a garden tool. But before that, when I had written my book, I had done some research and found several incidents, but one which stood out for me, which was Stefan Watts, who was a young 15-year-old from Calumet City, Illinois, who the family had made arrangements with police and local health officials that when Stefan had a mental health episode, that they would have someone come by that was a mental health professional and help escort him to the hospital. But on a particular day that they did call, his father called, two officers came. They didn't have a mental health professional. They insisted on coming in. He let them in. Stefan ran to the basement. The two officers ran right after him. And within moments, there was gunfire and Stefan was shot dead. The police said that he had a knife, but it was later revealed it was just a butter knife. And the family was just incensed because they felt like they didn't take the protocols or do the things that they should have to have saved Stefan's life. So they went to lawmakers, they went to the police, they went to television, news agencies, newspapers, telling their story. And eventually they got something passed called the Community Services and Support Act, or CESA. And that basically says that no officer in the state of Illinois can respond to a mental health emergency. They have to send a professional to deal with it. Now, thankfully, I have never had a mental health situation with my son. However, I always wondered what parents did in terms of preparing their kids that are on the autism spectrum when they would be encountering police in a tense situation. How do you prepare your child? And that's how the series that I pitched to the Black Information Network, it's where I work at. I'm a reporter there. And I said, why don't I talk to parents, getting their concerns, how they handle it, talk to mental health professionals, and those who know how to handle a situation. What are some of the things that they do to prepare their kids? And they love the idea. And that's how the series was born. And that's what I won the Gracie Award for. Now, the book, it came after I talked to all these parents and all these mental health professionals. We started talking about other things other than police encounters. I wanted to talk to them about, how do you handle getting ready for college, things with
Getting a
high
job.
school, other
Mhm.
things that, getting yourself self-regulating, emotional regulation, making more friends, dating, which I haven't gotten to. Oh my God, um, things like that. So I wanted to see what they did to kind of prepare their kids, and it was really interesting information. And I was like, "This is a book. This is definitely a book." And it to me, I mean, if you want to say the bottom line, I feel like is that when anyone that's a person of color who picks up this book and reads through it, they're gonna see something in it that connects to themselves, and that's what I hoped, is that they could see something about their life, that they feel like that they're not alone when it comes to, their journey, that somebody out there kinda sees how they see or has
Mhm.
a bit of advice that might be useful for them, and that's the reason why I wrote the book.
Isn't it different when they're younger? And there's a lot of organizations that support parents that have children. When I say children, they're young. They're usually elementary school. So there's a lot of support there. As
Yeah.
they get older, the organizations tend to still focus on the younger children and not so much the young adult. Is it because they really just figured by this time the kids would have figured it out, or the parents would have figured it out by then because they're with the kids longer? It's like 20 years later, is it because of that, or is it really just because there is a a a gap, I guess you would say, of like what it is that you do? If they're looking for jobs, they're going to college, they're dating, they're doing all the adulting things. There's not a organization that really focuses on that young adult or even the adult that's on the spectrum.
There are some small organizations that are across the country, but it's not a huge effort, which I think is integrated into the system. I think
Ah,
that because once kids get past high school, that those supports often disappear unless parents take the time to make sure that they have advocated for their child, done paperwork to help so that the kid has, the young adult has extra supports because often once that graduation goes, it just evaporates, and a lot of parents
oh,
are find
okay.
themselves in very, very, stressful situations, many which need, high support. They have to make sure that they are on it, like, in that sophomore year or even before that, they're working
Mm,
on that paperwork to make sure that they get those additional supports. There are I would say there are agencies out there statewide and, nationwide that have a few, but it's not on a huge basis, like, a lot of the support for the young kids.
mhm, mhm. We're talking
Yeah.
with Esther Dillard. She's a journalist and the anchor with BIN, Black Information Network. She has worked as a reporter for more than about 12 years in different markets in Buffalo, in Flint, in Michigan, in Philly, and San Francisco. And for years, she's been reading and sharing with others about the needs of the special needs community. In this book, this particular book that I have here, she's conducted interviews with experts as well as autistic adults and parents of autistic teens to get some expert advice. So there's not another book really like this. She's sharing her research to other parents can benefit from the stories in this particular book, as well as the person who her son, her own son, is really on the spectrum as well. So part of this is just helping other parents, which is really part of your mission, but also telling the stories of other parents as well. And so what
Yeah.
is one of the stories in the book, because it's really, really good and juicy. And it talks about, like, one in particular, you kind of talk about Camille Proctor, about the power of labels.
Mhm.
And this particular one, she talks about, the labels that kids encounter and that kind of thing. She says, I don't want to have an IEP. And what does IEP stand for?
Well, it's, individual education plan, and a
Oh,
lot of people, these are plans that students who are diagnosed with various things. This isn't just on the spectrum, because the spectrum, I think people don't kind of realize that it's not just autism. The spectrum kind of connects with a lot of different uh, diagnosed
ADHD
disabilities, like
or maybe
ADHD, like
oh,
dyslexia,
Down
like those who
Down
have
syndrome
hmm?
Down syndrome, maybe?
Down syndrome, person who has, auditory processing disorder like Amanda Gorman, or that you see, music in colors. That is also something that, some musicians, they see the music rather than just hear the music at the same time, and that helps them with their creative process. It's how your mind or your brain processes things.
Mm,
That's what's different. And a lot of people don't like the connection of individual education plan because they feel like it's going to make their kid be segregated or separated from the regular quote regular kids
mhm,
or those who are neurologically um, just neurotypical. Um, but what Camille was trying to say is that that individual education plan helps the teacher and helps your student or helps your child so that they can navigate the educational system better. And a lot of times kids that are in college are able to have a individual education plan in a sense because the
mm.
college is able to give them additional help that they
Yeah.
may need while they are in a college program. But people a lot of times have a stigma, and it's something that is it's something that people are still working through today. Um, a lot of times people, take the diagnosis of autism as being negative, and as opposed those who are on the autism spectrum or those who are on the spectrum often say, I'm autistic, and they're happy about it, and they are proud about it because it's just a way in which their life revolves and how their brain works, and for them, sometimes that helps them be a better professional, whatever that is. So to look at it as it's something that needs to be erased or fixed, or that you're somehow a human being that's less than others, is what has to be kind of changed as far as the mindset, the social mindset. And I think that that's what Camille Proctor was trying to get at.
Yeah, because if you do understand or you do quote unquote label or you actually know what is going on, then it's better to support or to give uh or to, just to really just have other people understand as well. And so I can
Hmm.
kind of see that. I want to say Elon Musk is on the spectrum, but I'm not sure what actually it is. I want to say
Right.
it's
Yeah.
Asperger's or something like it's been said, but something
Right.
like that. But because it has been known that he has that, people know how to interact with him or more or less like give them the understanding that, oh, okay, then that's just the way his mind works. That is just what he does. So it's just really a way for all of us to be able to interact with him as well. So when you were, how many people did you actually interview for this particular
think I
series?
would say approximately 12 to 15 individuals that I interviewed.
Wow,
Some had more, people, more,
I love that.
uh, information that I extracted from them than others.
Mhm,
There was one professional that I thought was really unique. She is a, psychologist, one of few Black psychiatrists, psychologists, who deal with kids on the spectrum, and she was saying that, it's a challenge because there are not a lot of professionals, in the field, that enough, she would say, to do as many diagnoses that they need. And
mhm,
that's why many Black children, I'm looking at the statistic here, I think let me look back here. I had done a little bit of research and it said that, Black children were 2.6 times less likely to receive an autism diagnosis than white children. And that's according to Psychology Today.
mm,
But 1 in 36 children in the US are now identified on the autism spectrum. Many times Black children do not get in the office fast enough than they should to get the preventative measures that they need. And that's what she was saying, the professional that I spoke with, she was saying that just not enough professionals to do the work that they do. And then once the child gets in the system to get the help, a lot of times the schools don't have as many teachers and as many professionals to help the children. So then you
Mm,
find a dilemma there. Many parents, if you get on some of these parent groups on Facebook, you start to listen, it's just heartbreaking listening to the parents who really want their children to get the kind of education that they think they need, but then there may not be a person who is an occupational therapist that's there, or they don't have enough occupational therapists or enough speech therapists to help their children. So it's just
mhm.
something that is a big problem in the US, and you probably read many, many times that they need more teachers and that it's really difficult to find the teachers to stay because the pay is not as good, and
Mm,
then add in all the additional needs for special needs kids. It's
it's
amazing.
even more. One of the
Yeah.
things that you talked about, the first two that really sparked your interest for the book was the run-ins that the kids had with the police, and that they were, basically they were murdered. They were murdered by the police. And is it really because maybe the size of the kids, because they're African American boys, sometimes adolescent? I mean, obviously when they're little, they're going to be small, but as they
Right.
get to about maybe 6 feet, 200 pounds, 250 pounds,
Yes.
they become
Yeah.
they become a
Well, just
threat
think about
because
it.
of
I
their
mean, think
size.
about the
Yeah.
fact that if you have a kid that's a black child, 200 pounds, 6th grader versus a 110-pound white child, a lot of times both kids may have a bad day, but how they are perceived by the
Yeah.
teachers and those who are in authority. The big child, the big black child may be perceived as a threat or as someone
Mhm.
who's dangerous, who needs to be removed because
Or
they're just,
restrained
they're
or
yelling. But you have the same other kid who was having a similar situation who's yelling too, but they're not perceived as the same. So it's a lot of things that I think parents, who did share with me in the book, that they dealt with, over the years, and it continues to be a problem. That's one of the reasons why I really believe it's a disservice when people are talking about removing things like diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because
mm,
if you don't include and you don't have diversity, then you don't see these people for who they are, and are not able to interact with those people and understand their points of view. And if you're not able to do that, then you don't have a society that is equitable and fair and allows people to express themselves, and also just being able to understand other people's points of view. And I'm not talking just black folks, I'm talking about Latin folks, Indian folks, white
mhm.
folks. Everybody has a different point of view and a different perspective. And diversity, equity, and inclusion is part of that.
Yeah, and one of the things that you said, that the subtitle of this, A Parent's Guide to ASD Safety, Communication, and Employment Opportunities to Empower Black and Brown Caregivers and Their Families. And so Black and Brown, and that's one of the main things that you talk about, a communication, safety, and employment. So let's talk about employment opportunities, because it's a whole nother game.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
with employment, first of all, it's really different for people to be employed today because of the gatekeepers that are put through, I guess you would say, through computers or systems or AI, or that kind of thing, right? So then if you meet someone in person over Zoom or whatever, then you've got this prejudice because they are different. So explain the process of employment. Obviously we have laws that protect EEOC, equal opportunity, but give me some scenarios, I guess you would say, from the book where employment is not the easiest thing to navigate. We kind of put that one last, but that's the livelihood of the child. At this point, it's like they need to be employed and they need to stay employed. So kind of give us some scenarios on that part.
Well, from what I have, my research has found, in getting into this because it is a lot when it comes to employment, and people on the spectrum, but there hasn't been a lot of research that shows uh, how employers are trying to improve upon it. It's still just beginning in terms of how they're integrating more systems to make things more equitable for those who are on the autism spectrum and those who may have ADHD or major anxiety when it comes to interacting with a lot of different people on the job. Um, One thing that I found is that, like, let's say for kids that wanna go into college, um, about 30% of kids, who graduate are on the autism spectrum, but only about 30% of those who go into college, actually graduate, and the reason is because there's not a lot of support within the system of most college colleges to be able to help that student. And it's
Mm,
because, a lot of the IEPs, once they get out of high school, unless there has been a significant effort on the parents' part and on that student's part to identify and to put that in writing and make the steps to work with the college to get those supports, a lot of times they don't come with them. And
mm,
because they are, quote, adults, parents are kinda, like, pretty much shut out. They
right,
are supposed to be on their own. They are an
right.
adult. So, because those supports don't happen, a lot of times the kids get overwhelmed, they don't finish the homework, they don't go to classes, they don't have, executive functioning issues in terms of, doing the laundry, the adulting stuff, making sure that you eat
Yeah.
the right times a day, what you're eating and how you're taking care of yourself. All those things, even to the hygiene, things like that. Um, People aren't given that kind of support, and a lot of times those kids need that kind of support going into the college atmosphere, but, a lot of people just don't understand it that. So taking that into the whole work atmosphere is another whole level too, because, if you don't have supports for some individuals, they may okay, let's say that they have pretty much a lot of things under control, but too much noise in their workspace. Just
Mm,
they don't deal with that very well. While somebody else may be fine in the cubicle next to them with the music going, that may be
mm,
to them a very major distraction. Um,
mm.
Different things on the job and work in terms of being able to how they interact with people. Perhaps they're not a person that likes to go to the office party or the office gathering together because they're more of a loner. Then that's considered not being part of the group or part of the team, so to speak. But they may
And
be
they
a
won't
very good worker and very be able to do their job very well, but then that counts against them because
for
of how they
promotions.
right, for promotions and interactions. So it's a lot of nuances and things that are connected to this that I think that a lot more research has to be done in terms of how employers, one, recruit, and then how do they retain individuals that are maybe extremely talented, and on the autism spectrum.
Mhm. There was a friend of mine, their son is, on the spectrum and very creative, won a scholarship to the Center of Creative Studies here in Detroit, but his skills just one-on-one is not really, really good, but his artwork is amazing. They did a whole gallery of his art, and it's amazing. And so a lot of times it's really up, at this point he's in college, but it was really the foundation, and really his mom spent so his mom spent a lot of time the beginning years just really doing all the work. And actually she stopped working. I guess he was probably like in maybe third or fourth grade, and spent the majority of her time just really, working with
Being
him
his
on
advocate.
on IEP and all of those kind of things. So it's a whole it's like she had a whole nother job, but not every parent can do that. And so that's one of the things that this book really helps to give you options, choices, to read other people's stories, to figure out how they did it. And even to the point where you're putting in the names and the references where you can even reach out to them. You list different organizations. I mean, it's a resource where I find that people don't have to go it alone, but if they can just glean from someone else's story and then say, hey, that reminds me that I can do this, or that kind of thing. This has been one of those books, and it's a Archway book, which is a vision, I believe, of Simon and Schuster. Is that,
Mhm,
yeah, Simon and
mhm.
Schuster. So it's on Amazon. It's in, you can get it in bookstores too. If you don't want to go to Amazon, you can order it from bookstores as well, because it's a Simon and Schuster book. But one of the main things too, you give the first and last names of the people so people can actually reach out to them as well. And they can reach out to you as well at esterdillard.com, because you're doing workshops and speaking opportunities that you will offer for people with different organizations. What is like schools would be some of the ones, and just really even like even churches, for them to understand what it is that they can do to uh, support those that are on the spectrum, or the term that you use too is neurodivergent.
Right,
There was a
neurodivergent.
word, yeah, there was a word that I learned from you. I was like, "I never heard of that word," but those are the educational things that you just don't know. So, kinda tell us a little bit about what people will get if they go to esterdiller.com, and the best way
Oh,
to
you
reach out to you or follow you on social media.
honestly, if you go to esterdiller.com, you can reach out to me through email. I have esther@esterdiller.com. And you'll see on my website some of the things that I've done. I try to continue to blog. I'm getting better at that. I have to get better at that.
Good.
And, but, I'm gonna continue to put some of the conversations that I have with other parents as well as other professionals, to kind of expand my reach in this area. This is something that is new for me because my journey has been, as far as a journalist, has been generally just doing stories that are interesting about different interesting people. And I find that a lot of people who are that have disabilities, and not just on the autism spectrum, those who are blind, those who are deaf, those who have other disabilities, they're kind of like they're not talked about. They're not
Yeah.
allowed to share their stories, and I think
That's
that
true.
that's a terrible it's a kind of a bad way of looking at things because it's everybody gains from other listening to other people,
Mhm.
and I found within the pages of this book, at least, Raising an Autistic Young Adult, is that parents say it takes a village. It really
Mhm.
takes a village to raise your child, and being able to connect, making those connections to other people, it may be so small you think it's not that important. And that one thing can lead you to someone else, which leads you to something else. And you're like, oh, wow, this is exactly what I was looking for. This is exactly the answer that I needed. And it was simply because you were willing to open yourself up, listen to
Yes.
someone else, and to reach out.
Yeah, that was really good. I can see you sitting on the couch with Sherry Shepherd. Sherry Shepherd, I just found out the other day that her son was on the spectrum. I didn't realize
Yes.
that. I mean, she said it so offhanded, and it was like I forgot what it was. I think she was doing Oprah's favorite things or something, and she was just
Jeffrey.
talking. She always talked about her son, and then she just said Jeffrey is his name, and she
Yes,
said that,
Jeffrey.
and I was like, oh, okay, and I didn't know, and you won't know looking at kids. Sometimes you just don't know, and then when she said that, this is a book that she needs to have as well, because she can definitely relate. So I'm putting that out there, because that's your next interview, Miss Ma'am.
Right.
I really think that, because this is book. I mean, you spent so much. I know it could have been thicker than this, so just trying to drill it down so that it's not overwhelming. But doing all the
Um,
interviews and all the research, and then all the links in here that you have for the resources. If someone needs to know, the National Parent Helpline, that's in there, and the National Parent to Parent USA, and all the resources, Autism Society, obviously, but Family Voices and Autism Parenting Magazine. And then you were just recently on a podcast with Successful Black Parenting Magazine as well.
But they're gonna do a, successful Black parenting magazine, a big forum in the next couple of months.
Good.
I'm going to be looking forward to doing that.
Oh, good, good. So that's one of the things I see you doing more of this. This is I can see this taking off and really just helping those parents that are trying to navigate. So thank you so much, Esther, for joining us today. People can go to esterdillard.com, get on her email list, keep in touch with her, follow her on social media. She's on LinkedIn a lot as well. So make sure that you do that. So thank you so much for joining us today in Pam Perry's Picks.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All righty. So we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. So esterdillard.com, make sure that you go there. You can actually get the information about the book and book her to speak and all those type of things as well. She is definitely, I'm going to put a link in there to her sizzle reel as well, so you can hear how she speaks and then bring her in to speak. So with that, I'm Pam Perry and I am out. God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.